Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and we're back with another Pathfinder Bites where I try to tell you how to play one of the classes in Pathfinder 2e in under 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're talking about the Fighter, one of the most commonly used beginner classes in most tabletop games, and one similarly used in Pathfinder 2e for similar purposes, though I will say that the Fighter is more complex than people like to give it credit for. So what is a fighter? A fighter is the premier combat martial class. They're all about combat. All their feats and all their class abilities are centered on combat. They are one of the best combat characters in the game. And honestly, if you want to just do damage or just worry about fighting, fighter might be the class for you, but it can be so much more than just that. Having good HP, being able to get master proficiency in armor, and advanced weapons, as well as legendary in all weapons eventually, the fighter is good at everything combat. No matter what equipment someone puts in your hand, you're going to be as good or better than other martials using that weapon, which is absolutely insane. And on top of that, they're the only class currently that can be trained in advanced weapons. And they actually get all the way to master proficiency in advanced weapons, which is a very strong boon and something that you're going to want to keep in mind if there's an advanced weapon that catches your eye. It's thanks to all the benefits that fighters get to weapons and armor that they can have some of the most varied styles of gameplay in all Pathfinder. Depending on what weapon you're using or how you want to approach combat, a fighter can even have multiple combat sets as a part of their toolkit to approach different combat situations. If you're taking the archer archetype, for instance, you're going to be just as good with bows as you are with your primary weapon group, meaning that you can swap from melee to range with the same level of proficiency, which is incredibly powerful, and it makes the fighter incredibly diverse, having almost a tool for any situation when it comes to combat specifically. So now that we talked about what makes a fighter, let's talk about, or what is a fighter, let's talk about what makes the fighter the fighter. How is fighter so good with literally everything? Well, the fighter, if you haven't played the game, I'm sure you've heard at least the meme before, it's the +2. The fighter has a higher proficiency with one group of weapons over all other martials. While all martials start trained with all martial weapons, the fighter is expert, and they eventually get to legendary, which most martials never even get the ability to get to. This means that the fighter has a higher DPR, or damage per round, and a higher accuracy overall, making their damage very consistent and on the higher end of classes in the game. In addition to their weapon proficiency, they also get a variety of class features that make them pretty much unstoppable on the battlefield. The first one is going to be bravery, which allows them to essentially, they get benefits against fear effects specifically. Now, they do get up to master proficiency in willpower, which is very good for a fighter, but if it's a fear effect specifically, if they get a success, they get a critical success instead. And whenever they do get the frightened condition, it gets reduced down by 1 to a minimum of 0. This makes the fighter dauntless on the battlefield and very good at late game, as a lot of enemies employ things like fear or even demoralize actions to nerf the players in some respect. The fighter resists this better than most, and thus is very powerful because of it. On top of that, they also get Battlefield Surveyor, which gives them master proficiency in their perception, skill, and DC, and on top of that, an additional +2 circumstance bonus to their initiative rolls. Now, this is amazing because other classes need to select a general feat called Incredible Initiative to get the same benefit, and fighter just gets it baked into their kit. No feat investment, no nothing. It's a very solid feature of the fighter, and it makes it so that they're more likely to go quicker in combat. They go just as fast as an investigator or a ranger who gets up to legendary in their proficiency. It's all really, really good, and it makes the fighter, again, more combat focused. And on top of all of this, one of the fighter's premier abilities is their combat flexibility. At level 9, they get essentially an additional feat. They can select a feat of level 8 or lower that they just can swap every day to whatever feat is necessary. This makes the fighter very capable of swapping up their battle tactics on the fly and can allow them to adjust depending on if they find a new weapon that might not match their current skill set. And at level 15, they get an improved version, which gives them an additional level 14 feat. And the best part is this level 8 feat the level 8 feat can be a prerequisite for the level 14 feat. And they can change both of these every day. So you can be adjusted to any combat situation you need, and it makes the fighter one of the most proficient when it comes to pure combat ability, as they can just have a feat for any situation. It makes them really powerful. So for this class, what are my tips and advice? Well, first of all, because you are proficient with a group of weapons, don't forget that even if it's not your chosen group of weapons, you're just as proficient with all other weapons, except advanced weapons, as the other marshals. So even if you do go down a proficiency to use another weapon, maybe you found a magic weapon or something else, you are just as good as your other teammates. In fact, don't let it dissuade you. Yeah, you could be doing more damage with a particular weapon group, but you can do it just as good as everyone else, so you don't need to ignore it. And speaking of the +2 bonus, it's actually a really good way to help further diversify your fighter. If, for instance, you wanted to play a more recall knowledge-based fighter who's really good at researching and understanding the enemies they're fighting, learning their weaknesses and such, you can take a 2-point drop in either your strength or your dex, whatever your main combat skill is, and you're still going to be just as good as your other martial compatriots, while simultaneously investing those points in, say, your intelligence to do better at recall knowledge. This gives you a level of flexibility that other martial classes just don't have, because you have that extra 2-point sway that you can invest in other areas. Sure, it makes the other weapons that you could select outside of your weapon group a little bit weaker than your compatriots, but that's hopefully being made up for by the skill boosts you're getting or whatever other benefits that those skill points are being used for. Now, fighters have a ton of feats, and it's very important to clearly understand what playstyle you want to go with when selecting your feats, and it makes it much easier. They have so many really good combat feats, it can be really hard to pick, and you can get that choice paralysis. Just select a style of fighting, whether it's sword and board, whether it's using a bow, or what have you, and pick feats that focus around that. The great thing about being a fighter is with combat flexibility, you can always adjust your kit as necessary, and with Pathfinder 2E's retraining system, you're not even necessarily locked into a specific feat line if you really don't want to. Use the opportunity with combat flexibility to adjust your playstyle to fit something that you find personally more fun and engaging. And as an additional tip for fighters, you have Attack of Opportunity starting out. It's a very powerful feature. It lets you strike an enemy on their turn as a reaction when they use a manipulate or movement action within your reach. This means that if there's a ranged enemy, if you post yourself up next to them, they have to either step away from you to avoid being attacked by you, which wastes one of their actions, or they're going to provoke you by either striking you or attempting to stride away. It's a really good way to suppress a ranged enemy, and the fighter has Attack of Opportunity baked in like everything else, so they don't even need a feat for this feature. If you're right up in front of a ranged character, they can't really do a whole lot to stop you. The same goes for spellcasters, as most spells have somatic components which require a manipulate action. In any regard, as a fighter, if you're not a specifically ranged fighter, get as close as you can to these characters to make them waste their actions. It's going to be a big benefit, and it's a really big brain play as a fighter. Prioritize your targets to get the most effect from your kit. All right, and that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you managed to watch this far, please slash that subscribe button with your +2 extra bonus. It really helps the channel out and helps people who need to see these videos out more. And, well, if you want to see more content like this, there's no better way to show it to me than to subscribe. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.